Welcome to Leaving a Legacy, Navigating Estate Planning with Rose Harper Law.
Hello and welcome to Leaving a Legacy, Navigating Estate Planning with Rose Harper Law. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and as always, I am joined by Rose Harper, the owner of Rose Harper Law. Rose, so good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been doing some episodes about planning recently. We're going to continue that. We're going to talk about planning for special needs, planning, protecting those vulnerable loved ones. So let's dive right in. Why is estate planning particularly important for families with a loved one who has special needs?
Yeah, I mean, estate planning is really important for everyone, but definitely if you have a family member or a loved one who has specific needs that, you want to ensure continue to be met if you're not around, then estate planning is absolutely essential. Families with a loved one in this situation are often planning not just to transfer their wealth, but really want to ensure long term well being of their loved one because they've created an amazing structure and support system for them. And it's really, really important to make sure that that's carried on and honored. So without the right plan in place, even a well intentioned gift like an inheritance could unintentionally disqualify that person from vital government benefits like Medicaid or Social Security disability insurance, or it could leave them vulnerable without a clear plan for housing, care, or advocacy. So, being an estate planning attorney myself, I usually approach these conversations, definitely with great care and deep respect. And my role is to really help families to build a plan that protects their loved ones' financial future, but also honors their unique life and their needs.
Boy, that's an interesting one. I wouldn't have never thought about is an inheritance can change your benefits, your government benefits and Medicaid and stuff like that. That's something I never would have thought of.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's certainly important to get an estate plan done and have a consultation for sure.
Yeah. What is a special needs trust and why is that so valuable?
Yeah, so the special needs trust is another legal tool that can be used and designed specifically to hold and manage assets on behalf of someone else who maybe has a disability or some type of special need without affecting their eligibility for public benefits. So it allows funds to be used to supplement things like therapies, transportation, education, or quality of life enhancements without disqualifying them from programs like Social Security insurance or Medicaid. But it has to be done very thoughtfully, very carefully. You need an expert to do this. Do not do your own special needs trust. You need to go to an estate planning attorney who can get this done for you. And what makes it so valuable really is that peace of mind that it's bringing to the families. So it ensures that your loved one's going to continue to get the financial support and the compassionate oversight, and it's structured in a way that helps them to, hopefully remain as independent as possible, but also meet their needs. So we tailor the trust, to the individual because no two people and no two families are the same. Everyone's different and their needs are different.
Continuing what we were just talking about, what all can go wrong when money is left directly to a person with special needs? Because there's probably more than just what we talked about, but of course that's important too.
Absolutely. Leaving money outright to someone who has specific needs and they're on government benefits can unintentionally jeopardize their eligibility to continue getting those government programs. So, benefits like supplemental security income, Medicaid, this is all specific programs and basically usually to get on them it's because their income level is so low that they qualify for these special programs for specific reasons. Maybe they were diagnosed with something that prevents them from getting gainfully employed on a full-time basis so that they could support themselves financially, and because of that, we've created these programs within our communities to help them, make sure that they can, live an appropriate lifestyle. But if you give them an outright inheritance, then they might lose those benefits because it does go according to income. And also beyond that, then that inheritance, instead of being a gift, it could be really burdensome on that person and their, whoever else is still remaining to help take care of them.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that when you're structuring your estate plan, you definitely need to let your estate planning attorney know if you have a family member that might be getting on to government benefits because of a specific diagnosis or, need that they have. So it's definitely something to bring up during the process.
You mentioned the special needs trust before. Does that help in any way preserve eligibility for these government benefits like Medicaid, like the supplemental security income?
Yes. So what happens if you properly structure the special needs trust, the assets are held on behalf of the beneficiary. So the beneficiary doesn't actually own those assets directly.
Hmm.
And you can put provisions in that say, I want this money to be used for, certain things for the beneficiary, but because it's not their assets, they can't control any of the assets or funds. They can still receive the government benefits that they need to actually like function. It's really important that the trust is compliant with the current laws. Laws change over time,
Sure.
and you want to make sure that the trust actually works and doesn't risk those essential services. So definitely work with an expert.
What are the factors that you kind of help coach parents consider when they're choosing a trustee for a special needs trust? Because it's a little different than your average trust.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when choosing the trustee of a special needs trust in particular, it's a very emotional decision because this is someone that you need to essentially oversee like everything that's happening with your beloved family member. Usually it's a child. So usually it's a parent, planning for their child, maybe even an adult child. That I'm saying child because you're still the parent. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
I have an adult son, and I'm still like, "Oh, my adult child."
yeah. No, no, I totally understand. I totally
And,
understand.
he'll always be my firstborn, child. But, so, you wanna make sure that you're choosing someone who is responsible, organized, financially literate, or at least knows enough to consult with a financial advisor. If they're in over their head, they notice that, "You know what, let me get an expert and, make sure I'm doing things correctly." And someone who not just knows the financial aspect or is willing to get someone to teach them the financial aspect, but who really understands what your child's needs are, what your values are, and the things that you want to have continued to be put into place. So usually families will choose, a sibling or a close friend, but sometimes they opt for a professional trustee like a company. But in other cases, sometimes they'll do like a co-trustee arrangement, which can work really well. That way there's checks and balances and you kind of have like a team making decisions.
And does the trust include other aspects beyond financial support? Is there, like personalized instructions, care wishes, things like that?
Absolutely. It should. So, a special needs trust can include what's called a letter of intent or a care memo. And this is non-binding, but it's a valuable document. It communicates your wishes, your child's routines, medical needs, preferences, values, dreams. It paints a picture of who your loved one is and not just what their financial needs are, but like who they are as a person. And, that guidance really helps future caregivers and trustees make decisions that reflect your family's values and honor your loved one's dignity and individuality. And, I always encourage families to include this element in their planning.
Yeah, is it mostly I assume most families are pretty open to that. That sounds like a pretty something that maybe they wouldn't think of, but once you tell it to them, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a really good idea."
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely one of the parts of the process that people really enjoy
Mhm.
sharing and talking about, and it's actually really I feel like it's cathartic sometimes to, like, actually, like, document, like, wow, like, we have this amazing, system and lifestyle that we put into place here. It's really tremendous, and, like, to get to see it put down on paper and, like, know that, okay, this can continue moving forward. It's an emotional process
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah, and to your point earlier, there's a lot of work gets put into a life plan for a family in general, much less a family with someone who has special needs. So making sure that goes on the way you want it to is really important, and maybe not something that people consider.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned that, the emotional weight of this kind of planning. What advice do you have for families that are navigating this?
First, your feelings are totally valid, and, this is deeply personal process and work. You're not just filling out forms, you're imagining, a future for your child,
Mm.
and it's incredibly hard to think about not being around for certain occasions for them or not being available to them. So my advice would be just to take it step by step. You don't have to have every single answer before you meet with an attorney or even immediately after you have your first meeting. You know, our job is just to basically help you navigate the process, go step by step. We guide you, we listen, and we help you make decisions, from a place of love and clarity and not fear. So by getting that plan in place sooner rather than later, it can give you that peace of mind. You'll have everything put into place with a comprehensive plan that works.
We've discussed in other shows about trusts and wills and how not necessarily everyone needs a trust. In your opinion, does everyone with a special needs beneficiary, or best special needs son, should they all have a special needs trust?
So for planning, you definitely need to have a special needs trust at some point. It just depends on, how you're doing it. So if you're only prepared to do will-based planning, you can still have the testamentary special needs trust provisions put into your will. Or if you're already creating a revocable living trust for your family, you can also have the inheritance pass through a special needs trust provision. There's also another way that people create special needs trust, and they actually create an irrevocable trust now and start putting assets into it now before they even pass away. I see that more so with families with a large estate, families where it's an adult child. The parents are much older, they have more money than they can live off of for their lifetime, and they're ready to start moving those assets now.
Okay.
So it really depends on, like, the age of the parents, the age of the child, what are the capabilities of the family. Does it make sense to put things in a certain way now, or does it make sense to wait? Because you can only give assets that you have. So if you're still using things during your lifetime, then, you wouldn't create the irrevocable trust right now. You would go through either the will-based planning or the trust-based planning, but at least include the provisions that the inheritance should pass through via the mechanism of a special needs trust that would be created later at that time.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
All right. Well, great tips as always. Thank you very much for tuning in to Leaving a Legacy, Navigating Estate Planning with Rose Harper Law. To connect with Rose and her team, head to roseharperlaw.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We very much appreciate it. Rose, I always appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for all the insight.
Thank you. This was really, really great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.